With its seemingly long list of benefits, which includes boosting mood, alleviating pain, promoting healthy sleep and healthy digestion, improving skin conditions, and so many more, it's no wonder people are turning to essential oils to support their health and well-being. The popularity of these wonder-working oils is stirring interest in learning how to extract them for personal use or for business. Welcome to Extraction Essentials, where you'll learn and discover how to create a formula using quality engineered products. Hosted by Tony Frischknecht, this podcast is all about the process of extraction tools and the equipment that surrounds the extraction lab or facility. Create an income while enjoying the many benefits and uses of essential oils by tuning in to Extraction Essentials.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Extraction Essentials. I'm your host, Tony Frischknecht. And if you guys like what you're hearing, or you've listened to the show before and you're like, I want to follow these guys, please follow us on your podcast. Also, you can follow us on our YouTube channel too. So please check us out there. Guys, today I have something really exciting. I've got Nick Gay here with me, and we're going to be discussing some distillation processes and some basics. We're also, I can't wait till the second part of our show here. Nick is actually going to take us through and show us how to create what they call bathtub gin. Now, for those of you listening or watching out there, we're not making alcohol, but we are going to show you how to infuse alcohol so you can create your own flavors. Isn't that right, Nick?
Totally. Yeah. Thank you very much, Tony.
Hey, Nick, so let's get to it. Distillation process. Where do we start?
Yeah, totally. So the alcohol distillation process is a fairly simple, straightforward process. It's been around for a very long time. I don't know exactly how long, but people have been drinking for ages. So, but yeah, it starts with various grains and starches, fruits, anything that really has sugar content in it. And those starches and sugars are then turned into a mash, where the starches are converted to a sugar, or those sugars are boiled out of the fruit. And then after that mash process, there's the fermentation process where yeast is added to the sugars, where alcohol is formed. And so that fermented mash is a very low alcohol percentage, similar to, most beers or something like that. And then after that, they do the distillation process, where the fermented mash is boiled, causing the alcohol vapors to rise. And those alcohol vapors then travel to a condensing coil, where it's turned into a liquid and then collected, where they then will redistill it multiple times in order to get a higher proof and a better purity product.
So let me ask you a question about that. So redistill, what's the purpose of redistilling?
So essentially, let's say you start with something that's 6% alcohol. You'll distill it, it'll then be 40% alcohol. And then you distill it again, it may be 60% alcohol. So, and you're also leaving behind all these impurities. Every time you boil something off and you're boiling off the alcohol, you're leaving behind all these different like sediments and minerals and little things like that can add into the flavor of your end spirit.
So these impurities, what do they do to the body? Like if you ingest these, say you've only distilled it once, right? So well, what happens if you drink the alcohol if it's only one time, as opposed to like say 6 or 7 times?
I mean, really, it's not really necessarily a health hazard for the most part, because most beer is not distilled. It's just fermented mash. But if you're trying to make a liquor and you want something to be stronger, and they'll typically make it out of different things. Instead of using starches, they'll use things like fruits or potatoes. So you don't really want that potato flavor or the raw potato flavor. And then once you distill it a couple different times, then both you've hit your purity that you're trying to get to, and then also your flavor is clean. And then also typically if you have something that's only once or twice distilled, it can give you a really bad hangover for whatever reason.
So for you guys out there that like to drink the cheap stuff, pay a little more, less of a hangover. I always like that.
Actually, sometimes they distill the cheap stuff even more. So if it says like 9 times distilled,
Yeah.
that's not a good thing.
Oh, really?
I mean, yeah, that means they made it out of something so cheap that they had to distill it an extra like 4 times.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, the set 5 times, 7 times distilled, it's not necessarily a testament to the quality, but the potency will definitely be super high.
Okay. Well,
like Everclear doesn't taste good, but it,
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's great to. I'm glad I learned something right there. So I hope somebody else did too. So today we're going to be creating some bathtub gin, is what they called it back in the day. What do you know about gin?
Yeah, totally. So honestly, I'm a beer drinker, so I had to do some research myself before I did this whole process. But so the term bathtub gin was coined back during Prohibition times, when bootleggers would soak botanicals in illegally made moonshine in order to make that moonshine palatable to the widespread public. And that term has then, changed, and now it just means that you're making your own infused alcohol at home, and it's just kind of been a kind of novel term. Okay. But the only stipulation for an alcohol to be called a gin is that it is juniper berry forward, meaning that the main botanical used is juniper berry, and that it's 37.5% alcohol and above. And so there's a couple different types of gin. There's some back and forth about it between us and the Europeans. Here in America, we recognize 3 different types of gin. One is Genever, the other is gin, and then the other is London dry gin.
Okay.
And then there are 4 types of gin that are recognized within Europe. One is the juniper flavored spirit drinks, gin, distilled gin, and London gin. Now, I don't know the differences of all these, but if you want to go into that further, we could definitely talk you through that in a later podcast.
Okay, that's great. Well, all I know is from the flavor side, they get into you get multi flavors of gin where that juniper berry is really, really strong a lot of the time. So, and there's ways to tame that out depending on how you mix your drinks. And if you are making your own, of course, you can add as little or as much as you want to create that perfect flavor for yourself. So bathtub gin, that's what you and I are going to be, you're going to be showing us how you created some, which is really cool. What type of methods of alcohol infusion are out there?
Totally. So there's a couple different ways. Quite possibly the oldest way is called maceration, which is essentially just soaking whatever your herbs or botanicals within the alcohol and then straining them out after a certain amount of time. And then the second way, which is used most commonly, is they do that first maceration process and then redistill that product, which then, like I said before, leaves behind some of those impurities that are extracted out through that process. Another process is vapor infusion, where in the alcohol distillation process, when they're redistilling the alcohol, they put a basket of botanicals right up here that the alcohol vapors then flow through and then collect those aromatics through the distillation process.
That just sets up and boils on top of it. It really is worth it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like steaming broccoli or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like a container where you've got your pot on the stove, and you got your screen up top where you get it boiling and you drop your broccoli in there and steams it out, and then ready to go. And that's what. Okay.
And then the only difference is that steam is then converted back into vapor because it's all a closed system. Yeah. And then the liquids, that's your alcohol.
Very cool.
And then there's 2 more modern fashions of extraction or an infusion with alcohol. One is vacuum distillation, where they'll do that same sort of alcohol distillation process, but they'll do it under a vacuum. And so what that will do is it lowers the boiling point of everything. So you can carry out the entire process at a much lower temperature. So for example, under full vacuum, water boils at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, wow, as opposed to 212.
Yeah, half of it. Okay.
Yeah. So
what are the positives to distilling at a lower temperature like that?
Yeah. So a lot of different aromatics and flavors and things like that are actually killed by the heat process. So if you can lower that temperature, then you're then being able to capture and retain more of those flavors and compounds.
Makes sense. Okay.
And then the last one, which is actually, I did a lot of research and I couldn't find anything about it, is CO2 extraction. And so that's one thing that we're going to be covering in our podcast, where we're going to be doing a maceration and then comparing that to a CO2 extracted extract of the same exact aromatics, and then comparing them side by side.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to that because especially if you haven't heard anyone, this will probably be the first time for not only me, but everybody else who's watching to really see how it works. So just to recap, so the alcohol vapor infusion process, fermented mash is boiled to produce alcohol vapors. Second, alcohol vapor passes through botanicals. Third, vapor is cooled and condensed into a liquid. And the fourth process is repeated as desired. That's to take out all the impurities or get it to the strength that you want it to, right? Am I saying that correct? Okay, Awesome. So before we get into the video, can you share your recipe with us so we know what we're making today?
Yeah, totally. So we're going to be using a recipe I found online, and a little bit modified. So it's 750 milliliters of vodka, 2 tablespoons of juniper berries, 1 tablespoon of coriander seeds, 2 cardamom pods, a half stick of cinnamon, a small piece of dried orange peel, a small piece of dried lemon peel. And on both of those, you'll remove the pith, which is the white part. And the reason why you do that is because when you extract it, that part becomes really bitter in your mixture. And then the only addition that I made to this, just because I had it on hand, is my girlfriend has a lime tree. So I took 2 lime flower blossoms and threw that in there. But that's just the little fun thing.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're baking a really awesome pie of some sorts to me when I look at this.
Totally. And then as far as sourcing any of these sort of things, I know juniper berries, where do I get that? Amazon, or there's a website called Bulk Apothecary that has a lot of these kind of hard to find herbs and things like that. So.
Okay. Well, great. Well, I know everybody's excited to see what the video out there. And I know we have to, we're going to be actually tuning into you next week in your lab where you've actually created this. And we're going to take that and we're going to go through, Nick's going to walk us through the process of this. So I know you guys are like, oh, you can't be cutting me off right now, but this is how we have to do this process. So please hang in there. Come join us next week as Nick and I really do the first CO2 distillation process that I've never seen, and Nick is going to do it. Him and David are actually going to be a part of it. So I will have them on for you next week. And Nick, we will see you in that next show, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Tony.
You have just listened to another informative episode of Extraction Essentials with Tony Frischknecht. We invite you to come back next time as we strive to provide useful knowledge and tools every week to help you on your extraction business. You can also visit extractionessentials.com for additional resources and to know more about working with Tony. See you again next time.